I'd like to welcome everyone to our Wednesday workshop. This is the 23rd of July or June already. Yeah, 23rd of June already. Summer has arrived. I hope everybody is enjoying summer. Today we're going to be doing a roundtable instead of a tech presentation. It's going to be involving technology as we talk about where are we going in terms of our club meetings and get-togethers. We have a number of key speakers, one who is right on the road right now, so he's going to join us as soon as possible, and Bill James. But we'll kick things off today with Judy Tallur, the advisor, chair of the advisors for APCUG. Our co-host, as usual, is Bill James, advisor for, I think it's
8,
which is all, he's the next group west of me. And I'm of course, John Kennedy. I'm your APCUG Zoom host. And Judy, off to you to get things started.
Thank you, John. This was an interesting set of emails I received after on my soapbox email, after having received nothing to my first one. A lot of groups out there are doing hybrid meetings. I have, after meeting, follow-up on the information that everybody has provided. One group in Arizona has a nifty diagram, a schematic, how they're putting their system together. A lot of them say we're still thinking about it. There were several groups that said we're just going to remain Zoom, because the people that always take the projector, the laptop, et cetera, in and set everything up are tired of doing that, or their center where they meet, like mine, it's a private nonprofit, so they plan on being more strict than California guidelines, and ours won't open until the November-December timeframe. So we're just going to remain a Zoom group, and I'm kind of tired of carrying everything in too. So it runs the gamut of, we have no clue what we're doing, hoping to find out information today that will help. And it's totally different setups for large groups versus small groups. And we're going to have to take that into consideration. Dennis Smith from the Canton group is on the road, and he was going to be my leadoff person, because he had their first meeting and he was so darn excited. It worked just wonderfully, except for one thing as far as he was concerned. And I really didn't get it. Gee, I was really pleased the way it worked from almost nobody. Mostly it was, well, we had this problem, and it was either the audio or it was the video, or we didn't have enough people there to make it run. So hopefully we can, work all this out among us. And those of you who didn't answer my email and who are having hybrid meetings, Huey has some slides he wants to show us. So hopefully we'll all go home today. Well, you are home, that's right. And with something that you can use, even if so 2 or 3 little things that can get you started. Several people are having classes via Zoom and in person, no problem. Others just with Zoom, and that's working out well for them. So I'm going to throw it over to Bill James, who has had several hybrid meetings, and he'll let us know how he's doing it, and then over to Huey after that. The screen is yours, Mr. James.
He's muted.
Judy, this is Dennis.
Now,
I am on the call.
who's on the call?
This is the Dennis Smith that she was talking about.
Oh, outstanding, Dennis. Thank you. Go for it.
Okay, well, I'm only on my cell phone, so I have no visual at all. But we did our first hybrid meeting Monday night. And I've got to say, we were absolutely excited to get back together, and just as excited how well everything worked. We discovered one thing you only want to have one computer in the room with speaker or microphone on. Anything else, you're going to get feedback.
Mhm.
We used one laptop. We just called it the Zoom laptop. It was, it had pointed out into the audience, to the room. It was also then running the screen behind us. We used another computer then for the presentation. So when it shared the screen, that shared screen also showed up on the projected screen. So we didn't have to unplug and plug everything in order to show the presentations. And everything went real well. Everybody was happy with how things worked. The microphone worked. The handheld mic we could not get to work, but the microphone in the laptop was able to pick everybody up in the room, which surprised me. And everybody on Zoom could hear everybody in the room. Everybody in the room could hear everybody on Zoom. We had external speakers on the computer. It worked great. We were absolutely tickled. We have a couple photographs that have been sent in. We're going to be putting them in our newsletter, but I'm going to try to get a hold of those and send them to you, Judy, just to show you part of our setup.
Cool.
But we were tickled. And we're
And
excited to continue.
how large is your room? Small, medium, or large, so to speak?
We're in a small gymnasium, but we had about 12 people in the room, and we had another 6 or 7 on Zoom.
Well, I
So
guess
it was
a
a fairly
better
small
question.
group.
Okay, but how many could sit in the room and participate in the meeting?
We had about a dozen in the room, but if we had wanted to, we could have had 50.
Oh, okay. So to me, that's a large room. So good to know that the person in the back row could have heard everything and seen everything and participated wonderfully in the room. So that was good. Anybody have any questions for Dennis as he's driving down the street? And if you send me your information, I will add it to my handout.
Okay, I will make sure we do that.
Thank you so much.
I have a question.
I'm going back
Oh,
on mute.
good. Dennis, we got a question.
When you said only have one computer in the room, that's the Zoom computer, but then you said you used a computer for your presentation. So that's 2, isn't it?
Yes, 2 laptops.
But you said only one. So how did that work?
We had one that we used for the camera and the speakers for Zoom. We had the second laptop that also joined the meeting with no camera, no microphone.
Oh,
And we kept it muted so that we did not get feedback. And that one we used to give the presentation, but what we called the Zoom laptop is what picked up the voice of the presenter so that everyone on Zoom could still hear it.
okay.
And that's like when we have interference, so to speak, when one of you guys has an extra piece of electronic equipment right next to you. You might have, 2 people in the room, one has an iPad, one has a computer. With my meeting, they have to be in separate rooms. Otherwise, we get all kinds of feedback. So that would be the reason to just have one with the speakers on.
Right.
Kurt,
That's why
did
we
you
made
have
sure
a-
the second computer we made sure the second computer did not have the volume up and it did not have a microphone, so that it was muted, so there was no interference for feedback either way.
Kurt, did you have a question for Dennis? You're muted. Kurt, did you have a question for Dennis?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. He mentioned something, and it has to become tattooed in our brains. Okay, in your hybrid meeting room, you can have one and only one computer with a microphone and a speaker active. Everything else in that room should have their audio disconnected if they're connecting for whatever purpose to that meeting. You just gotta do that or you're gonna fight problems. Rule number one, only
Absolutely.
one computer. Okay, and okay, especially if you want to use something like a cell phone for the video to pass around to a speaker or for a speaker, okay, is that you must disconnect the audio. It is not sufficient to turn the volume down and try to mute it. You will have problems. Okay, and tattoo that in your brains. I hope we don't have to beat that horse to death today, but it's incredibly important.
David, do you have a question for Dennis while he's driving?
Yeah, the computer that you used to do the presentation, how did you connect it to the computer that was doing the Zoom?
I just joined the Zoom meeting with that computer as well.
I see. You didn't do like an HDMI out and in or something like that?
No, just joined the Zoom as well. And then when it did screen sharing, then what I refer to as the Zoom computer then showed that shared screen up on the video screen behind me in the room. So it really worked out good to do it that way.
Well, Dennis, how did you connect that presenter's laptop to the projector?
The presenter's laptop was not connected to the projector. The Zoom laptop was connected to the projector.
Okay, that good answer.
So when we were not doing a presentation, everyone in the room saw all the people that were on Zoom, the usual
Ooh.
people grid. And
That's
then when
cool.
you shared the screen on the presenting laptop, this shared screen then took over that screen, and we didn't have to plug or unplug or do anything else. It really seemed to work great for us.
Good. Don, do you have a question for Dennis while he's driving?
Yeah, Dennis, you said that you had the meeting presentation laptop connected to a Zoom account, and obviously you had your main Zoom meeting with a Zoom account. Were those two different Zoom accounts that you connected to, or could you use the same Zoom account for both computers?
What I call the Zoom computer is the one that was the host, and then the other one just joined the meeting.
But it joined
Just
the
like
meeting
everybody.
as the same account as the host, or with a different Zoom account?
Just join, no account at all, even just join meeting and put in the meeting ID and the password.
Okay, thank you.
Just like all the people that were, at their homes also joined that same meeting.
Yeah. Joe, question for Dennis?
I'll have a follow-up to what was just asked.
Yeah, the question I have is, why bother using a second computer? Why not just use the one?
Dennis, why are you using two, not just one?
If you're using just one, you've got to be flipping screens around as to what's going to be showing up on the projector. By using two, Zoom takes care of that for you, and you don't have to mess around.
I did one in a large room showing onto the projector with an HDMI cable. And we when I was sharing, whatever was sharing was shown. And when I wasn't sharing, the people showed. So was there some different switch that you wanted to do?
What did you use?
That's what.
Go ahead, ask.
Well, that's what was happening by how we did it. If you were using one computer, you'd have to flip back and forth as to what's going to show on the projector.
Actually, you would not have to do that. I understand what you did, and you can take and use just one computer in the room. While sharing is going on, the remote participants will not see anything that's going on in the room or other participants. But it does work with one computer. It also works with two computers.
The
We
question
did
I'm
have
asking,
one person.
let me ask, Dennis,
We
were
did-
you the computer that was the technically Zoom one? Did you have the camera pointing to the audience so that the home people could see the audience when there wasn't
Yes.
Okay.
And one person that was online had two monitors. And for them, when we were doing the presentation, one of their screens showed the presentation, the other screen still showed the grid of people.
John, did you have a question for Dennis while he's driving?
Yes, I did. The Zoom computer must have an awfully good microphone and good speakers. What was that computer?
That it has a real good microphone. It was a Lenovo IdeaPad that was purchased through a grant from APCUG, and the speakers, we had a set of speakers there that we plugged in that were powered speakers, and we used those to make sure everyone in the room could hear everything happening from Zoom. The microphone was better than we expected in the Lenovo laptop because we had purchased a handheld wireless microphone, but we had some connectivity issues with it as far as the adapting connectors to get it into the laptop. Pieces are arriving today to hopefully rectify that.
Stu, question for Dennis on his traveling?
Yes, sir. Did you show any video presentation on your presentation computer? I'm curious about another audio connection that would be coming out of the presentation that might feed back into the microphone again. Did you do anything like that?
No, what we were showing were PowerPoint presentations.
Okay, thank you.
Edward, question for Dennis?
Yes, you didn't have any way to accommodate a live presentation?
Well, the presentations, we're live. They were PowerPoint. I was sitting at the presentation computer talking, but as far as I did not have a camera facing me at that point. That has been a suggestion. We are going to see if we can get another camera on the presentation laptop so that when we are doing the presentations or when it's not sharing the screen, that the presenter's face can be seen as well.
The reason why I asked that is because our members kind of dislike canned presentations. They much prefer a live presenter. So we'd have to be able to accommodate a live presentation. Otherwise, it's not going to go too well.
I think the easiest
it was a live presentation. I was sitting there giving the presentation. It was not a canned video.
I didn't say that. I said a live person coming there to give a presentation. They're not even anywhere near the computer. They're going to stand in front of the audience and give a presentation. That's what our members prefer.
Okay.
Let me try to address that. If you have your audio source coming from what we're calling now your presentation computer, okay, whether it be an internal microphone or an external one, and your speakers being driven through that computer, you don't have to worry about feedback should you be showing a film or sharing something like that. And if you want to have a camera on your speaker in addition to that, the easiest thing to do is probably to take a cell phone, connect to the meeting, disconnect its audio, and now use that to take and show your speaker. That doesn't violate that rule about only one computer in the room with audio.
And it needs to be the same computer for both microphone and speaker.
That's correct. Zoom will take and handle it such that you will not get feedback.
I'd like to try to keep questions for Dennis since we've got him tied up. So if you have specific questions for him, we got plenty of time for other comments. So Dave Gerber, do you have a question for Dennis?
Yeah, I do. I apologize if you've already answered this and I missed it, but I'm kind of curious as to how many people attended this meeting in person and how many via Zoom.
We had about 12 in person and we had another 6 or 7 on Zoom.
Thanks.
Okay, Judy, do we want to turn it over to Bill James?
Yeah, because I'm afraid I'm gonna have to leave.
Okay,
Yeah.
Dennis, Liz sent me the photo, okay? So I already have it in my inbox.
Oh, Liz sent it? Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Liz.
Okay, over to Bill James. It is your turn to tell us how you are doing your hybrid meetings.
Thank you, Judy. We have a little different situation because we have a large area. Our room will hold about 100 people. We have a built-in PA system with overhead speakers and a projector that's overhead that shines on the screen. So how we're approaching this is that the projector is showing the Zoom participants. And then we have another computer that's actually signed into Zoom, and that's the one would be considered the presenter's computer. And then we have a second laptop that we're using that's panning the audience with another it's connected to another camera. And we have a omnidirectional microphone that's sitting in the middle of the room to pick up the people in the audience should they want to speak. The presenter, we had a live presenter this past Thursday, and he's given a microphone and he's able to speak to the audience as well as to the Zoom people. Now, the only thing that we haven't really worked out is that, and we can do that, is to add another camera or use that other camera to actually focus on the speaker. But so far, the only problem that we have really encountered is that we have a social hour at the beginning of the meeting, and the Zoom people are on. They can't really communicate with the people in the audience because, first of all, they can't see them individually who they are. And then secondly, there's a lot of chatter that's going about, which kind of drowns out anyone that's trying to talk. So what we've decided to do in this case is that we're going to mute the Zoom folks, let them talk among themselves, and mute the audience to the Zoom people so that they can also talk among themselves. The diagram that was, I'll see if I can share my screen. This is kind of a busy diagram, but this is kind of what it looks like. It's very similar to the one that was provided to Judy. That was from the Leisure World Arizona Computer Technology Club. Let's see if I can share this. Are you able to see my screen?
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay. So this is rather complex, but as you can see, in this case, they have also have an overhead projector and a built-in PA system. And there's that second laptop that's really the, in our case, it's a desktop computer that is actually connected to the projector. And that's the one that's providing the picture of the login, the people that will log into Zoom. And this is the one that we also use to share the screen if necessary. And then we have a second projector that is used that's used to show the folks in the room. And so far that's working out very well. You just have to be aware of the fact that, as everybody has pointed out, that you can only have, you have to be really careful with having other computers with their mics on. They have to be completely silent, or else you will get feedback.
What kind of mic are you using for the audience?
We're using a snowball, a blue snowball. That was somebody suggested that here. It's about $80. And it's an omnidirectional mic. It doesn't matter. You just need an omnidirectional mic to pick up your speaker. I mean your audience when they ask questions, so that the Zoom people can hear.
I'm one of those Zoom people attending Bill's meetings, and we kind of sit there like bumps on the log. Whereas normally everybody would be chatting among themselves. And like he said, there's just indistinct things, happening over there in their meeting room. And I think we don't say anything because we realize that they can all hear us loud and clear. And we don't want to interrupt what they're doing.
And it's at the beginning of
if he lets both parties, so to speak, know what's going on, and then he shuts off our speaker to their room. I told him first time he does that, he needs to have a shill there, somebody who will start the conversation ball rolling, because we're used to sitting there not saying anything. And once they realize they can do that, it's going to be absolutely fantastic, because everything else is crystal clear with his meetings. And
now that's at the very beginning.
Part of it.
Yeah, that's at the very beginning during that social period where on Zoom, the amazing thing was that we all got to know one another, and we all interacted together because we were just one group. But now that there's two groups, it's gone back to the old situation where we have these little cliques in the meeting room. They're all having conversations among themselves. The Zoom people are on, and all they hear is this kind of a chatter in the background, and they can't understand, what's being said. It's not a group conversation like we're having here. So that social aspect is difficult to work with.
Can I make a suggestion for your social period? Don't mute your remote participants, but put them into a breakout room, all of them into one group. That'll take them away from the chatter and let them effectively communicate among themselves.
Good idea. It never ever dawned on me to do that.
And you've done that for Toastmasters before, so it's no big deal.
Yeah. If everybody knows what he's talking about, is that you can put people in breakout rooms and they can talk to them among themselves, and it works very well. I never thought about that. That would solve that problem.
Better idea than mine.
Yeah, thanks, Kurt.
I use them every week in a church setting.
And Bill, don't forget to tell us what you're doing, both groups. So both groups know what's happening and why.
I'm wondering if they are well, maybe they would know. They'd have to agree to go to the breakout room, because something's going to pop up on their screen that says, do you want it? Kurt, am I correct?
I think you can. I don't know. I know the host can assign somebody to a room. I don't know if they can force them into it.
Yeah, I think that it's voluntary to go.
But if you explain why, that would be reason to go.
We will work that out this Thursday.
Too cool. Worth price of admission, kiddos. Over to Bob G.
I did a remote for Bill's Club, and that was a hybrid meeting, and that worked out very well.
Cool.
And we'll be having Ron Brown at our meeting this Thursday, and he's going to be remote. He'll be on giving his presentation at the very beginning remotely, and then he has to go to another meeting, and then that next 30-40 minutes, we're going to have a prepared video that he's done on the same topic. So we'll be able to, but we haven't had any problems with the screen sharing or any of that. The most problems that we've had has been at the very beginning of the meeting when we were trying to socialize. That becomes an issue, but I don't think that's something that everybody will have. Also, one of the videos that was provided to Judy by one of the clubs is that to be able to see individuals when they're speaking in the in-person meeting, someone was using either a video camera or a cell phone and actually just panning the room. So as someone would speak, they would put that camera in their face. Now, I don't know if everybody would be agreeable to doing that, but that's one way so that you would see when someone's actually speaking, you can see that one individual. And the other thing that I failed to mention, that our meetings are going there's more people on Zoom than there are in the room. We get usually 10, 12 in the room, and we have probably 15 or 16 on Zoom.
But he has one lady who's 99 years old and did not participate in one Zoom meeting, but by golly, she got in her Prius and is driving over to all of their in-person meetings.
She's actually 100.
100. Oh, Lord. I've been shortchanging her a year.
She's not 99. She's 100.
That's right. You guys celebrated her 100th birthday with a parade.
And soon to be 101.
Oh, geez. Okay, everybody, let's all perk up with a smile on our face. If she's 101, we can do good. We have three more questions here. Murray, do you have a question for pertaining to what Bill was talking about? If not, let's hold it until after. Huey, can't hear you, Murray.
Yeah, I forgot to unmute. Sorry. Yeah, I wanted to know, those meetings of yours, are they available to people outside your own group? Like, for example, can I attend?
I attend. I live in California. He's in Oklahoma.
I just need to send you a meeting link. Yeah, our meetings are open to everyone.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Shoot me an email, or I'll try to shoot you one with the link.
I've already got lots of meetings, and then I'll save my own comments about what we've done till later.
Thank you. John, question for
Yeah,
Bill?
I had a question about microphones. You use a omnidirectional mic for the audience. Is there a second mic for the presenter?
Yes, that's coming through the PA system. And it's a handheld. We have two. We have it's their choice. Either a handheld, if they're live in person, they'll use the handheld or the kind of an earphone kind of deal, a lavalier mic. And that's connected to the PA system.
They are in a business building, and the kind of setup they have is kind of business-like or homeowners association-like, not regular. We meet at the library or we meet at the senior center type of setup. Over to you, David.
Hi, we start our meetings with a question and answer, and I really like the suggestion of putting the Zoom people up on the projector. That's very cool. Do you have any suggestions for how to work a question and answer if we got nice speakers for our laptops, so everybody could hear the people who were on Zoom and we got a microphone like that. Do you have any suggestions on how to make that work better?
You probably could use a Bluetooth speaker that's connected to the laptop. That so people, depends on the size of your room.
Well,
But
there's
we had
usually about 40 people. We get about 40 people in person.
our meeting on this past Thursday was basically a Q&A. Of course, he was using a handheld mic that was coming over the PA system. But you could probably have a similar setup with because he'll be coming through the presenter's computer, so you'll be using the sound and microphone from that device. So you just want to be able to project the rather than using the computer speakers, you'll be using a Bluetooth device that's connected, or one that's USB. That would be my suggestion.
Could you use a handheld that people could pass around?
But I think he's talking about being able to project the presenter so the audience can hear. And then you could use a handheld to pass around among the people that were asking questions.
Okay, over to Tony and his iguana. Actually, his sister's iguana.
I was just wondering if your Zoom and your future hybrid meetings, are they going to be recorded for future viewing by other members of the club? And if they are, how are you storing them?
We're not recording any of them, but they would just be stored on your, like they are today. They would just go to the Zoom folder on your computer. And then what you would want to do probably at some point, you're going to have to invoke, either have a large hard drive or try cloud storage.
YouTube.
Or YouTube.
Just set up a YouTube channel for your group, and if you don't want to share them with anybody else, make them unlisted, if not private. Or
and you could also, the other thing is that you could save the videos to Google Drive. I mean, there's quite a bit of storage that's available for free.
15 gigabytes. Only 15 gigabytes anymore. And that includes
Up to
your
YouTube,
emails,
and you
photos,
have
and
no
everything.
storage problem.
Do what? Someone said
Shoot them up to YouTube and you have no storage problem.
Right. And
Yeah.
if you use OneDrive for your club, you can put them on OneDrive and share the folders, but that YouTube channel is fine. It's public, private, or unlisted. Okay, over to
I'll
you.
say, as Judy would say, be careful what's on there, because if it's copyrighted stuff, you'll lose your YouTube.
Yeah, what you need to do is when you upload it, you need to stop and smell the roses. Since March, it's been available that they do a quick copyright check. And I'm so ever grateful for that. And we had one VTC presentation from May that had copyrighted information in there, and YouTube immediately let me know before I saved it, so to speak. And it had some Sony video in there. And if I wanted to leave the video in there, I would have had to say yes to include Sony commercials. Or like one of the groups in Florida they got a red strike because something was uploaded that was copyrighted. 3 strikes and you're out. They take away your YouTube channel, and you supposedly lose everything if you haven't gotten it stored someplace else. So please be extremely careful about copyrighted material. I took the Sony part out because it was just a description of what he had very wonderfully talked about and described how you do what he did. So it was okay because it just kind of flowed seamlessly and it worked out okay.
My copyright strike was quite amazing. It was I recorded a church service, And I got this thing where my YouTube account had been canceled because I violated copyright. I checked into it, and guess what? Somebody had claimed the copyright for some of the song "Jesus Loves Me, This I Know," which has been in public domain for at least 100 years.
I'm sorry.
Disputed it, and eventually it took me a while, but they reinstated my account. They agreed, yeah, it was public domain. Whoever claimed the copyright what was wrong.
How tacky. Now, over to Huey. Don't anybody say anything so Huey can do his thing.
You're welcome to say anything you want. Thank you. Just a little quick background. I started playing with, I got to clear my throat. Hang on one second. I started playing with this kind of stuff back, well, it was probably 2009, streaming, used something called stream.tv. And at an FACUG, the Florida Association of Computer User Group meetings in 2011, Mike Ungerman and I were, after playing with a lot of things, decided to record, or not only record, but to stream the sessions so that Don Singleton in Tulsa could be able to see what was going on, and anyone else who wanted to join in on the meetings. So we played around with it a lot. So Mike and I have been playing with it for years, and I want to share some things that Mike has sent out and did, and I'll talk about it when I do that. So let me go ahead and share my screen. I'll share sound. I don't really need to because there's no sound, but, and let me full screen this. Well, actually, I want to do this. I have sent a copy of the slides because each of the slides will show you some equipment with a link in the slide. So you should be able to click on the link. Judy usually sends everything out, so I'm sure she will. Mike didn't participate except for sending me the information. I put this together this morning. I said it would be a lot easier if I put it all in one place. Just some things to consider, and some of the things we've already talked about. One thing is make sure you got enough Wi-Fi bandwidth wherever your meetings are. This is important because if you've got 2 or 3 computers plus people's phones using that same Wi-Fi, even if they're not participating in the meeting, but they have their phones turned on and they are signing into that Wi-Fi, you can have considerable issues getting out or getting information or getting people in. The speaker system and the microphone feedback is very important. You've got to get in the room and test it out. The other thing is people. You've got to have people handling this. If you've got only one person that does the equipment and no one else will help them, you're going to have a lot of issues. You've got to have people helping. You were talking about the projector in Zoom. This is something you have to consider. And again, practice. Try it and see what you can do with it. The microphone system for the room in Zoom can cause a lot of feedback, as we mentioned. So again, testing. The lighting in the room. If you got a lot of windows, be careful where you put your cameras so that the lighting, that the people's faces aren't washed out that are in the room, and the screen isn't washed out when people are looking at the screen. Feedback, if the audience members have computers, so like somebody said, and you can't say it enough, is make sure everybody's got their sound off if they are watching it on their computers, or if you have more than one computer. And Zoom on the speaker's person's computer. Sometimes you're going to have speakers come in and they want to bring their own computer because that's where their presentation is. And what you have to do is make sure they have Zoom on their computer or somehow get their presentation over to Zoom so that that can get out to the audience. What you don't want to do is have a camera on the screen. It's terrible. And camera and microphone for a live audience. Hang on one second. Sorry, my voice is not working with me today. Camera and microphone for the live audience So you want to be able to see the people and be able to hear them as well. Now, we were talking about different equipment, and Mike tried all kinds of equipment. How we did it is we were in a room, and I have a couple of shots of the meeting, but Mike and I practiced this at a meeting that was held in a Denny's restaurant. So the room is noisy. It's a side room, but you know, the waitresses was coming in and out and so on. So there was a lot of noise, and he arranged the room in a U shape. The tables slid together and then made it a U shape. He kind of sat in the center with a camera and with a microphone on a stick. And I'm going to show you some of the equipment that he was using and some possibilities of others, because some of it isn't available now. But let me go to the next slide. He was using a monopod as opposed to just a light selfie stick. This is a little bit heavier, and it was only about $20. And one of the cameras that he had, or one of the microphones he had, he taped on, they futzed around and made it fit on the end of this. And then you could extend it, and then he would move it around in front of each of the people who, each person who was speaking. And you'll notice at the bottom, there is a link to where that is on Amazon. And so if you get these slides, you can just go right to it and see where this particular item is. Now, I'm not recommending this item, and neither is he. This is just an example of some of what he either used or something similar to what he used. He also got a gimbal stabilizer. And what a gimbal is, it allows you, if you move your hand around, the camera still stays steady. And so to use it with either some kind of a camera or with a phone as a camera, it just makes it quite easy to do it, and it's not shaking, and it's just makes a nice picture. So this was one of them. The one he purchased is no longer available. So I went and I found a couple others. This was another one. This one wasn't, I think this is the one he had that wasn't available. These seem to have connections to to your phone, so you actually can stop and start the camera and do some adjustments to it from it, but that's not necessary. It's just a way of holding the camera, which is your phone. You might want to go even a little bit deeper and get a true camera with a good microphone on top of it. Now, so you don't have to be right in front of the person's face. You can zoom in on them a little bit, and the microphone will pick them up. What you have to be careful with is a lot of the cameras don't have a way to connect to your computer. So you got to make sure that it has either a USB or a Bluetooth connection, or it could have Wi-Fi, but Wi-Fi again is using part of the bandwidth. This is a lavalier mic that you can have pinned to somebody that's wired, and it would go to the computer for audio. I bought a cheap one using the Prime days, the last couple of days, and I can't seem to make it work with my Chromebook. I haven't tried it on my PC. This one says it should work. So if you get it from Amazon, there's a good chance if it doesn't work, you can send it back. But you want to make sure it has a connection that will connect to your computer, and that you'll have to test it out and make sure it'll work. This one has a switch between phone and camera, so you'd have it whichever one you're using it with. Here's another microphone, which is wireless using Bluetooth, or no, this one's using USB. There wasn't a price on it, but I believe it was around $20 or $30. This is one that it looks a lot bigger than it is, and I've got it right next to me because I ordered it and it came in yesterday. I've not tested it. I've not even tried it. But this is the one Mike had on the end of that monopod, and it's just a very small microphone that's actually designed to hook on the top. It's about the size of a webcam, so it's not very big, but it is omnidirectional, and it seemed to be a very good microphone. It worked very well. And I've got one in I'll show it to you when I go back to where you can see me. This is one I purchased a couple of days ago. I just used it to do some recording on my Chromebook, so I know it works there. It is wired, but it is a good microphone, and it's got pretty good quality. You could have it in the center of the room, or you could move it around. You can get an extension cord. It is a USB cord. You could have an extension for it and move it around as well. It does have an on and off switch, so you could turn it off while you were moving it, turn it back on when you got it to the person who needs to speak. This is another one I just ordered. It has not arrived yet, so I don't know how well it's going to work. It's supposed to be one where you put it in the center of a room and it should pick people up around it. We'll see how well that works when I get it. There's a hybrid example of the meeting that Mike and I tested with, and you can watch the meeting. There's a link to it on that page, and here's a couple of clip shots from the meeting. And you can see in the bottom one, that camera, or the microphone, I should say, is sticking out towards Sean, who was speaking in that picture. And I can stop the share, and I'll take any questions.
You knew that you'd come through with everything. And he sent me all that stuff, and it's so much more effective to have it in that presentation than me, putting it into my Word document with the pictures of the components and everything. That's great. I got the gimbal stabilizer last Christmas for grandson number 3, who is enrolled in the journalism program down at Cal State Northridge. And he has had one article already published by a hockey magazine in Nevada and California. But I thought that would be something that that would be good for him to use. So I thank you for mentioning that, because that kind of validates that Grammy had a good idea there. And I love that wired table mic. Somebody was on one of our meetings. This is, a year or so ago. And that's the kind of mic that he used when he was on his meetings, and he found that little one that was on the table. He could bend it this way and that way, and he thought that was good. I have a link to the video in my handouts. And lighting, a couple of groups in their room said it's critical about the lighting because they had to go around and try to figure out how to turn off some of the lights in the room where they had their meetings, and it's not actually, their room, so to speak. So they had to ask people how they could, do that. And then somebody remembered the setup. And John is looking for the, John has found the video. Mike sent me the link. And after we're finished with Huey's questions, he's going to show a little bit of what they did. Over to you guys for questions for Huey.
Yeah, by the way, this is that little microphone. You can see how small it is. It folds up, but it's got a little microphone and it clips on top, or it's got a hole in it, but the hole doesn't fit anything. It's either too big or too small. I was hoping it would just be the same size as one of the camera holders, and you could just put it on the end. So Mike jury rigged something. They drilled another hole in it. It's pretty solid, so it's not going to be a normal drill. But you could put a bolter in there and anchor it to that monopod or a monopod, and then have it on a real long stick and move it around. It is wired. It does have to be wired.
How about plumber's tape in the hole to take up some?
Yeah, there are all kinds of things you could do. Yeah, I'm sure.
Questions for Huey? This is the guy with the answers.
Just you got to bear in mind that it's going to be a volunteer people issue as much as anything else. You got to have people, especially for those of you like with CFCS, where they met in a restaurant, or they meet in a library, where you got to walk in the room. The room is there. You don't have any access to it prior to the meeting, and somebody's got to set everything up. You're going to have more than the one person that used to do all the setup. You're going to have 2 or 3 people. You're going to have some people go in and test it in advance to make sure that it all works. and then make sure that you keep track of how you set it up. So the next time you can set it up the same way.
That's
With regard to mounting that microphone, if you're putting it on something like a tripod, all you need is a quarter 20 wing nut to hold it down.
And it's critical to write down how your setup was when it worked. Really, really critical, because I know one group didn't. And when it came time for their next meeting, it was, does anybody remember how we set this up and it worked? And their second meeting wasn't anywhere near as good as the first one. So paper and pencil work wonders, or somebody with a computer and a word processing program where they can write everything down and people can make diagrams and everything. You're not going to.
And you have all of these cameras record it.
Yep. Good idea. Okay, you guys, nobody has any questions for Huey? I'm shocked. Oh, there we go. Earl, you're on.
Yes, Huey, I'm wondering, when you have a public address system in the room, does the live presenter's audio come directly from a microphone in the PA system, or does it come back from Zoom?
Each room is going to be different. The CFCS didn't have that problem because there was no PA in the room. And they didn't need one because it was just a small room, a small group of people. But, and I think Bill James has got his hand up, and I'm sure he can answer that much better than I can. So Bill?
Earl, ours comes directly over the PA system.
How do how does it get through Zoom so people can hear what's going through the PA system?
It's then picked up by that omnidirectional mic.
Okay.
Maybe I didn't explain my question well enough, but it seems like that the audio from Zoom comes back to the PA system continuously. Is that correct, Bill?
I have to think. I don't know. In our case, the presenter, if they're on Zoom, yes, that would be the case. But the presenter themselves, their voice is coming over the PA, and the PA is being picked up by that omnidirectional mic.
But it seems like that audio from the presenter is also going so that the Zoom participants can hear. And if you've got a computer connected to Zoom, it's going to come right back to the PA, probably delayed.
I can't answer that because we haven't had any problem. I just know that on Thursday, the guy was there live. We provided him with a microphone, which is connected to the PA system. And so he was fielding questions both from the Zoom people, which also comes over the PA, and people in the audience, which are being actually broadcast to the Zoom people through that omnidirectional mic.
So I think you're saying that the Zoom audience only gets their audio from this central microphone in the audience. Is that what you're saying to me?
That's what I'm saying, yes.
I'm calling on myself.
I'm calling you too, Judy.
You're too kind. I appreciate that. The first live presentation they have, those of us on Zoom could barely hear the gal. It was Corporal Kim talking about senior safety, which is an absolutely fabulous presentation. And, you kind of were going like this. You were, trying to hear what she was saying. And now that they have that omnidirectional mic, I'd like her to come back and do it again so we could actually hear her. But that, again, that was part of the learning process because that was their
presentation,
in-person presentation.
That in-person presentation, we were using the Logitech camcorder, and the sound was being picked up from that microphone, which is not, those mics are directional from what I understand. If you have a camcorder, you're going to have a directional mic. So the sound gets very narrow, or well, the pickup is very narrow, where the omnidirectional will pick up the surrounding area. So there was problems with those people being heard when they were using that mic.
Mhm. But again, it was a learning experience.
But I think, Earl, ask your question one more time if you would, if you don't mind.
If I remember what I said before, but my concern was that the presenter's audio is going out to Zoom by some method, either direct connection or from a microphone in the room. And it would be coming back to the Zoom participants, or is that automatically muted so that you don't end up getting feedback and delays and stuff that would disrupt the presentation?
I understand now what you're saying. I don't think that's been the issue, at least not from, not in our situation. But I think I understand what you're saying, but
When we can hear on Zoom, it's loud and clear now. And when it wasn't Corporal Kim giving her presentation, we could hear what Bill was saying, loud and clear.
I think the question might be, though, is you're hearing loud and clear, but does it match the lips of the person?
Oh, we couldn't see her lips. She was standing sideways to us. So I didn't care about that. I was just looking for content.
you know, our so far we haven't been videoed. We don't have a camera on the presenter because they're not at a podium or anything like that. They're just standing out in the standing out to the side of because the projector screen is in the middle of the room. So if they stand in front, they're going to be blocking the screen. So they usually stand to the side of that. But
no, I think what Earl is saying is that the room itself is one of the Zoom members. So there's audio coming into the room, which hits the microphone, which goes out to Zoom, which comes back into the room and hits the microphone, and it goes round and round. So you got feedback. He's saying, how come that's not happening?
I shrugged my shoulders for you, Bill.
The room itself has Zoom audio.
No, generally speaking, presentation microphones are narrow. They're not omnidirectional. You have to hold it close to your mouth. Otherwise, and that's specifically to avoid feedback, like singers use on a stage. When there's stuff playing all around them, they in fact use a highly directional microphone.
Right, but he was giving examples of the omnidirectional microphones you can use for your hybrid meetings.
Yeah, but
that's not coming back to the PA.
That's not coming back to Zoom.
Yeah, that's
it's
not
only
coming
going
back
out.
To the PA.
Yeah, the presenter is talking, and his everything is coming over the overhead, and the omnidirectional is picking up that audio and then passing it on to Zoom, because it's the one that's connected to the Zoom microphone. It's the Zoom microphone.
But if I'm on the Zoom end of it, I'm at home and I'm asking a question to the speaker. It's also to the person, the presenter, not the speaker, to the presenter. It's going through the speakers, and I think the question is, why isn't that feeding back?
I don't know. It's not,
because Kurt answered it earlier. Correct me. Your omnidirectional mic is connected to the hosting computer, and the audio out for the Zoom presentation is directed towards the PA system, correct? So that hosting computer is handling the noise cancellation. That microphone picks up the PA.
Bill has a professionally put together system in his room. It's not something like we would put together. It's
Yeah,
in
I
the
understand.
ceiling, it's in the walls, it's in stuff like that. It's kind of similar to what we have in our public schools, except we don't have the microphone. We don't have the speakers in the ceiling. So
I get it, but he's still got his speaker output for his Zoom presentation directed towards his PA system. So the noise canceling still works.
he told me that his setup is very similar to the diagram that he showed you that is working for the Leisure World Group in Arizona. So perhaps
I think what he's saying
is in my handout. So perhaps that will help.
But I think what he's agreeing with, he's saying that noise cancellation is working for our situation. And I'm not sure how that's working, but as I said, we have a Logitech webcam that we have that's the audio is turned off on it for the mic that's in that device. And at place we're using that omnidirectional microphone that we're placing in the middle of the room. So I think what, if I understand, is that when the question is asked by a person in the Zoom audience, that sound is coming through the overhead PA system, which could be picked up possibly by that mic, but for some reason it's not.
Okay.
Tom, did you have another question? Because you had your hand up a long time ago.
Right. Thank you, John.
No, thank you.
Okay, then John, you want to show a little bit of Huey and Mike's video for us, and so we can see exactly what went on.
Well, let's see how this works.
Don't forget that little checkbox and don't enhance. Oh,
Yep,
there they are.
Yeah. We'll go to full screen mode.
Getting noise from outside.
Hang on a second. I'll get it.
Okay.
I mean, I'll get it. Okay. That's gonna go get.
All right, this is the.
Hang on.
And Huey,
Let us know
feel
when
free
you're
to
ready,
make
Huey.
comments.
We're ready.
We're ready.
Okay, this is the Central Florida Computer Society Tech SIG taking place at Denny's in beautiful sunny downtown Castleberry, except it's not very sunny. We have about 6 people here, including Mike Ungerman, who is doing the streaming. We're doing it through Zoom out of Bradenton. And at this point, I'm glad that we all made it, and we'll turn it over to Huey and Mike and let them do their thing.
Well, my suggestion is
We've done our thing. Now it's your meeting.
it's your meeting. Just go around the room like you normally do.
Okay,
That little mic on the end of the monopod.
You want to start? You got any topics for us?
Let me look here, man. Oh, yeah. Does anybody know what this thing is?
You'll have to pass it around.
It is a dashboard. I think it's like, does it put out different sounds as you press the different colors?
Dashboard.
It doesn't do anything.
Or doesn't do anything? Well, maybe the battery's dead.
Oh, it's probably a sound maker.
Yeah.
Pre-recorded sound where you can press a button and it'll shout at your wife or another driver.
It looks like there's a switch on it, but I can't make it. It comes apart.
Oops.
Stand.
I'm going to pass it over to Sean. I don't see it. Is that a battery?
I don't know what that is.
I bet you it would come apart. And there's
I think you should throw it in the trash.
That's
what I've been thinking for a while.
Or I can take it home with better tools. I'll get it first. Oh, I'm getting it.
If Paul Colton was with us, he would dissect it and get into the wiring.
I managed to open it and I see that the reason it's not working is there's tape on the battery. Number one.
And a piece just fell out.
All those little buttons fell out. So I've got a strong flashlight and we'll have to look at, see if we can't get.
While this is going on, what's happening in this meeting is it's a show and tell type meeting. People bring things and they talk about things that they purchased and they have, and they just pass them around, or they show something on the screen and say, okay, this is what I found, what I bought this week, and just compare notes. It's a fully discussion type meeting. There's no presentation at all.
Outstanding. Thank you so much. Cut, John.
It's cut. Escape.
But you can see that Mike was moving the camera around. He was moving the microphone around. He was in the center, and the tables were set in a U shape.
And refresh our memory, what camera he has and how he's doing that, and was something on his monopod?
The monopod had the little microphone like I have here. Was the little Samson microphone, and that was on the end of the monopod, and it is omnidirectional, and it was it worked out pretty well. I don't remember what he used for a camera for that meeting. He may have just been moving his computer around. I don't know that he had actual, he might have been using a phone on the gimbal, and I think maybe that's what he was using. He couldn't make this meeting today, so he'd be better off to answer that. So I think it was probably the phone on the gimbal.
Right, but that wasn't too shabby. I noticed that nobody else hardly at all was at Denny's, and if it had been, oh gee, it was Sunday, wasn't it? Because our Denny's are filled with people on Sunday morning for breakfast, but other than that,
this was a Monday evening.
Okay, so no wonder.
And they have a separate room in the back.
Right, but it looked
closed
open.
room.
It was enclosed. I thought it was.
Yeah, yeah, that's a window.
Okay, so you can't pick up, your system wouldn't pick up anybody in the restaurant.
No, except for the waitress coming in and taking orders and that sort of thing, delivering food during the meeting.
Doesn't that look easy to do? You have to have somebody nimble to be moving everything around for you. I say a young, nimble person who can squat down or something. And hey, an admin chair would be good because they could just swivel around with no problem at all. Okay, thanks for sharing that, John and Mike and Huey for the link. Over to David Lerner.
How did they split the screen? They had 3 separate video inputs showing on the screen at the same time. What software did they use to do that?
Zoom.
So remember,
one was the Zoom meeting. That was one of the boxes. One was me, and one was somebody else who was online.
So if you have 3, in Zoom, you could have 3 video inputs that'll split the screen in that way?
No, just like on our screen here, you see the gallery view, you see all the people who are pretty.
Oh.
That's all.
Yep.
Because Huey was home across the state.
Yeah, I'm 120 miles away from there.
With his old web around.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to need to do something else.
Yeah, each club's going to have a different issue and a different setup because it's the equipment that you have, the room that you have, and what you have to deal with. And bandwidth is going to be very important because if you don't have the bandwidth, it's going to be near impossible to make it work.
Kurt says he's cobbled some notes together, so over to Kurt from Twin Cities.
Thank you, Judy. Over the last year, TCPC has not been able to have any in-person meetings, and that'll continue through September. but also over the last year plus, I've hosted probably more than 50 meetings, 50 to 70 meetings for my church. Many of them have been Zoom only. A couple of them have been hybrid attempts that were either minor or abysmal failures. And last week we did one that was a smashing success. So let me put together a couple notes from that. Number one, and this is not obvious, and it's really not always obvious when you do testing, but minor Wi-Fi problems severely affect audio that goes out to your Zoom participants. And if you can, use a wired Ethernet connection to isolate you from that. I've seen that in a couple of different locations where things look solid as a rock when we tested and caused some minor or significant problems when we tried to go live. Number two, if you can, and this is very successful, and I think it probably can be used for meetings of quite some size, instead of using a projector, if you have one available, use a large screen TV. Last week we were in a conference room that had a 65-inch TV. We hooked up the laptop to that via HDMI, and that took care of the video and audio coming from Zoom. Okay, connected to that laptop was an omnidirectional boundary microphone. And if I can share my screen and find my
John is making you a co-host as we speak.
Okay, and let me share this. I don't want to do that.
Central Kentucky has a 85-inch TV.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay. This is a boundary microphone. This thing is probably only a couple 3 inches in diameter. It is the lowest price USB connectable boundary microphone I could find. And somebody showed something similar today that might be a little bit less expensive with this. As audio microphones go, I'm never going to take this thing and put it in front of a soloist or an orchestra or a band or something like that, but it works very well for spoken word. Okay. I've used it in the middle of a conference table. I have taken and set it in the middle of a good size room at sort of tabletop level, and it will pick up anybody in the room. So you don't need any more microphones. You connect this to what we're calling the Zoom computer, and you select it as the microphone that Zoom uses. The laptops that we've had available to us when we were meeting in, for the hybrid meetings, typically have a relatively narrow field of view. Okay, to combat that, I got an El Cheapo. This thing was between 20 and 25 bucks. A webcam off of Amazon. This one is not available. There's tons of these out there. There's a lot of things I don't like about this, but it'll produce a good picture. The microphone in it is crappy. The mount right here does not twist around anywhere near enough, especially with regard to up and down. And that causes problems, but it works. Okay, we put this up on top of the 65-inch TV, and I think that's all I need to share. Okay, KISS is terribly important here. Keep it simple, stupid. A lot of things that I would have liked to have done, I could have done with OBS and with audio mixers and things like that. There is no way the volunteers that I have available at the church location when I'm controlling a meeting remotely, I've just had failure after failure, two of them in particular. We've taken pictures, we've drawn diagrams. It doesn't work. Keep it simple, okay? Last week, we had a very successful meeting set up by somebody that is not at all technical, and it worked beautifully, okay? If you want to take and use a speaker camera, okay, a cell phone will do that nicely as long as you disconnect its audio. Now, if you want to take and put it on a tripod in other environments, I've taken and gotten good, relatively inexpensive camera mounts for use on tripods. I'm not prepared to pull those up right now, but there's some of those that are very, very good and very, very flexible in how you can take and use them. And a cell phone, as a Zoom participant now, with its audio disconnected, will allow you to take and pass a speaker microphone or use a speaker presentation microphone or camera, I'm sorry, not microphone, camera, to use that successfully. One other camera that I have considered using because of its wide field of view, okay, we didn't use this last week, but I've done some testing with it, and it's really inexpensive if you can find them now. It's a WiseCam V2. It's a discontinued model. I have gotten them as refurbs from Micro Center for less than 20 bucks. This camera is designed as a surveillance camera. But a year ago, when you couldn't buy a webcam for anything because they just weren't available, okay, some folks at Wise rewrote software for the WiseCam V2 and also the WiseCam Pan, I believe. It's a little bit of a convoluted process to download it and load the BIOS into the camera. And it takes an unusual cable, a USB A to A cable, like the kind you plug into your computer on both ends of it, okay? I've never seen a use for those before. I have a local vendor that has them in great quantity. Why, I don't know. But it has a very wide field of view. We've done testing with it, and it works very well as an audience camera. Now, the rooms that we've been in, that Audio Technica mic that I showed you, in the middle of the room, in the middle of a conference table, picks up everything. Okay, the thing we're relying on here is that our speakers can project to fill whatever room that we have. And for the places that we've both tested this and actually done it in person, that has worked very, very well. I think I mentioned it. I might be going over this again. The camera on your laptop doesn't do a real good job picking up the audience. Some of them are low quality. Most of them probably have a very relatively narrow field of view for this purpose. So I offer that advice, and that's the end of the notes that I've got here, and I'd be happy to answer questions.
Kurt, Liz would like to know how you disconnect the audio on a phone.
Okay, when you Zoom has made this a little bit easier in the more recent releases of it. If you click on audio settings, if you click the up arrow next to the mute, okay, and I'm looking at this right now. There is an option there. I'm not seeing it on the desktop right now, but on cell phones, the bottom option says disconnect audio. You might have to do a little bit more than that on a computer. I'm not seeing right now. I just downloaded 5.7.0 this morning, so I'm not seeing it, but it is very prominent on cell phones. It's the bottom of the list which makes it to be the first one that you see if you look up, and it will disconnect both the microphone and the speaker. The nature of iOS, I'm sure, and I think Android is that you can never turn the volume down far enough to disconnect the microphone or the speakers. And if you don't, to effectively disconnect them, and you have to disconnect them, okay, you will have problems. They can be relatively minor. They can be disastrous.
Hey, Liz, I would normally say you should Google it. John would say, Judy, you stop saying that. You should say DuckDuckGo it. So I'll give him his 2 cents worth too.
Or you should zoom at the question, because I think in their faxes there's probably something there.
Any other questions for Kurt? All righty. George is up from Victoria, and after that is Murray. Murray would like to talk about everything that he sent me in his email late last night. So over to you, George, first, and then to Murray. George, you're muted.
Okay, so what I wanted to address was more where you get your content and where we're going to look for content, because we've done a survey recently, and many of our members are quite willing to have a speaker remote or to be in an audience. They want an in-person meeting, half of them at least anyway. And so we're thinking more of using a speakers bureau or attending the VTC as a group. The hours don't suit our meeting place very well, but we'll have to work around that either by doing it in a from the tapes or something. So I'm curious as to how people have found meetings where like a speakers bureau, you have an external speaker and then live questions, or even less interactive, something like VTC.
Okay, George, just think about my digital asset presentation I gave your group. I was in Southern California and our Q&A was live afterwards. It works the same way with anybody from the Speakers Bureau who's giving a presentation. We chat before the presentation, back and forth, then we give our presentation, and then we open it up for live Q&A like now until there are no.
Judy, your volume just went away.
Yeah, I know. John muted me.
Yeah, so basically, are other groups finding, I understand how it worked, but I'm wondering how other groups are finding reception in their clubs to non-live presentations, either recorded but viewed as an audience, like a movie theater, or is that, I mean, do they have to go through this technology solution where they do mixed hybrid meetings in order to keep their members?
I don't know that anybody has decided that yet, because so many groups have lost so many members. It's like the 100-year-old lady who would not attend a Zoom, but by golly, you give her an in-person meeting and she's there. And I'm personally hoping that having hybrid meetings is not more trouble than everybody. I'm sorry, we have to meet via Zoom and life is going to carry on for us. That worked well, but if we can't figure out our hybrid meetings to work well, we're going to lose members because of that. And I really don't want that to happen. And I forgot in my opening remarks, we to date have had about 135 Speakers Bureau presentations from January to now, and I have bookings through December. So that's here for obviously the circumstances we're in now. But, you know, we had 150 Speakers Bureau presentations last year. Two groups, the Tulsa group and the Hawaii group, wanted to attend a VTC as a group. And I talked them into using a hotspot because where they met, they had miserable internet service. And one of the groups in Northern California did the same thing, except their president logged in via Zoom and broadcasted out to all of their members instead of all the members, you know, coming in on their own. Anybody else
Judy?
have any comments for George?
Yeah, I was going to say, Judy, that with regards to the Speakers Bureau, I have a number of groups in my regions that if it weren't for like Speakers Bureau and remote speakers, they wouldn't exist because they can't get anybody locally to do any presentations. And you just have to kind of smell the roses and say, if nobody's going to do it and we still want to meet, we've got more than enough speakers to fill a number of years worth of programs if you're willing to, you know, have them come into your homes and present. And otherwise it's going to be clubs with the same person presenting month after month or every other month. And some of us get burned out with that.
Yeah. We have over 100 unique presentations, and it was put together also like John said, it burned out. The same people in the group were giving presentations. That person was tired of it. The people in the club were tired of seeing the same person give the presentations, a la the Speakers Bureau. In my surveys, in the top 5 questions over the years, it was always, how in the world do we get programs? Speakers Bureau. That's why Singleton and I came up with it. I mean, what can I tell you? It's a huge service that APCUG offers. And I've recently gotten 2 new presenters. We have one on genealogy. There has to be 30 presentations up there that she can offer. So, and we consider it live because we're live in the beginning and we're live at the end. Our bodies just don't happen to be there. Bob Bowser agrees with that. I'm in his den. I'm in his president's kitchen, it looks like, when I give a presentation.
George, our group hasn't had any real complaints about whether they're live or virtual. They just like the idea that there's such a variety. They don't hear the same individuals, and you have such a wide variety of individuals willing to speak from different organizations and from different viewpoints. And I think, you know, it's just a better way to broaden your knowledge. It's just having people from different parts, and whether they're live or virtual doesn't matter to our members.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that we can keep the, you know, by gathering in the meeting room, which we won't be able to do until at least September anyway. We will be able to have the personal contact that people really do want to have,
Mm-hmm.
and still not have to do all of the generation of content that falls on just too few members right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
And
thanks a lot.
I hear from members that say, oh, we're going to show the video from the blog. We're going to show one of Huey's videos where he's given a presentation at a VTC. I immediately get back and say, why? Have the real Huey come and give the presentation to you, or the real Bill, or whoever. And for some reason they just don't take that leap. And they go, oh, you know, like, oh, what a concept. And I
think we're just afraid of burdening your speakers too much.
Yeah, hey, John was at my meeting and last week, and by the time we were finished, it was midnight, his house. He had those toothpicks in there, but I also know he stays up late.
I would encourage.
We don't care. I have had to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I mean, not that I don't get up at 6 o'clock all the time, but I had to be up and ready for a 7 o'clock a.m. presentation on the East Coast. We enjoy giving presentations. It is not a burden. Huey, nod your head. It's not a burden.
I don't mind.
You can't shut us up.
I don't
know.
mind.
That is a problem, isn't it?
I would encourage groups to survey their users. Use the Google form to ask, what kind of content they want, what subjects they want covered, and how we go ahead in the future. And I think after we do a few of these sessions where people will get exposed to it, they'll understand a little more some of the questions I put in our survey. We need to go back and resurvey and get feedback on whether they still are reluctant in some areas.
Right. Thanks for the idea about your survey, but that's not going to happen. How I get new speakers and presentations is people who are giving them volunteer to do it. If you guys, well, Bill and I both have put 1, 2, or 3 presentations together specifically at a group's request, but that's us. No,
I was saying in each club,
okay,
survey your own members to get a sense of what their needs are.
Oh, Dabbeard said no. Maybe they'll answer a Google form. I mean, because God knows nobody ever raises their hand and says anything during a live or Zoom meeting. I sometimes give 3 presentations a day. The ending question is always, now, what else would you like to learn about? And they throw that key away and nobody says a word. I tell my members, then you're going to get a presentation on something that I want to learn how to do.
Yeah, well, we did it with multiple choice, and so we've had a pretty good response so far. Good. I mean, our survey only went out 2 or 3 days ago, and we got 33 responses already. So,
hey, I used multiple choice, and they checked every one of them.
Yeah, I said only 3, please.
Oh, very good, Deb.
I think our members took a vow of silence.
Huey, did you have something that you were going to comment about for him?
Yes.
Speakers.
Let me turn my button.
We'll get to
off
Murray
here.
in just a minute, but let's finish up this part.
I kind of understood from George's question too, is what about getting somebody locally to speak? Well, with more and more groups and companies and so on doing Zoom meetings, it's a lot easier now to get people to do a Zoom meeting locally. I belong to 2 groups. I belong to Sarasota group and I belong to the Orlando Central Florida group. And we had somebody from the sheriff's department in Sarasota talk about security and what they do and some of the things that their department does and so on. Excellent. She did it from her either office or home on Zoom. Did a wonderful job. We had a fellow that does, his company does hard drive restore. If you get a hard drive and you have to send it to a place for them to be able to restore it, that's what his company does. And he talked about different reasons why people sent it to him and then different things that they had to do. And he talked about a lot of the technology behind what they did. Fabulous. It was so good that the program person from Sarasota said, we want him. And they got in touch with him and he did another presentation for the Sarasota group. So there are some people in your community and they're comfortable doing Zoom meetings now. So don't overlook the people in your community, your librarians, the people in your library. They're doing Zoom meetings for members of the library. They'd love to have more people and be able to talk to more people.
Not great, but you know.
Yes, we do get the librarian to come and give our presentation at least once a year because they keep changing the way we're supposed to borrow digital books.
You'd think in Southern California that we would have a ton and a half of tech presence. We have Playa Vista, we have YouTube, we have Belkin, we have Microsoft. There is nobody that wants to give a presentation. I cannot tell you how envious I am of the groups on the East Coast and the types of presentations that they get that I can't get in California. Everybody, they used to be in Orange County. They all moved to you guys. So Zoom it is for us. But thank you, Huey. Just suppose if I asked that hard drive guy to do a VTC presentation, he would?
I think you would.
I kind of thought he was in person because I was going to ask, but I thought he was in person. Okay, Murray, over to you to talk a short time about what you sent me at midnight last night.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted now, and you've lowered my hand. Good. Okay. Well, first of all, I have George might disagree, but I've been quite happy for the brief time when we could have hybrid meetings with our Linux group and with our Raspberry Pi groups. We had I thought, fairly good results with the hybrid meetings. Now, in those two groups, we actually used Jitsi Meet instead of Zoom, but it would work just as well with Zoom. The only thing with Jitsi is that it's free and open source, which the Linux people all seem to like a lot. Also, there are no limitations on the number of people or on the time for a free account. However, that aside, as far as equipment is concerned, what we have a meeting room, and during COVID, we were limited to a maximum of 8 people in the room. And I think we had up to that at times. We tried a bunch of different things. The main thing we had was a large screen TV with an HDMI connection to one computer that was connected to the Zoom meeting. We used an omnidirectional microphone, much like what has been shown there. And what we would do is move it to be in front of the person who was actually speaking in the room, if that was the case. Otherwise, of course, we would hear them from the Zoom meeting. Also, we use different kinds of cameras. People have used the cell phone or sometimes a webcam. I prefer the webcam, partly because it doesn't use any bandwidth. And in the room that we've been meeting in, that has been one of our biggest challenges, is that the Wi-Fi has often been flaky. We sort of have 2 choices that we can connect to the Wi-Fi, and sometimes we've actually had to resort to using somebody's cell phone on data plan as a hotspot in order to get a reliable enough connection. On the other hand, I've also done hybrid meetings with our genealogy group, and there the people are more technically challenged, and we found that to be that we have used Zoom. We did use Zoom for that one, but we found that that was a little bit more difficult, especially for the people trying to join with Zoom. They would have so many troubles joining and whatever. There's a group in Victoria that has extremely successful. They have increased their membership. They've increased their revenue, I think, by 20% this past year. Their meetings have been the best attended they've ever had in their history. That's the Victoria Genealogical Society. And their success has, and the key, oh, by the way, the key for those hybrid meetings, I will reiterate what others have said, there should only be the presenter computer and the Zoom computer connected to the Wi-Fi. Make sure that everybody else has theirs turned off, preferably their computers or phones completely turned off, or at least in airplane mode, so that they're not using up any of the bandwidth. And then that I think is really, really critical, especially if you've got a situation where you've got bandwidth problems. But other than that, it's usually worked pretty well. And as far as the Linux meetings concerned, we have used every kind of equipment conceivable as far as the computer, Raspberry Pis, Chromebooks running Linux, PCs, Macs, just everything you can imagine. As far as I really want to thank you again for the mention of the breakout room. our group is small. Groups are small enough that we don't need that. But one place where that was extremely, I think one of the most successful things I've seen during the COVID was the Roots Tech, which is the largest genealogy convention in the world. And I think they had 2.4 million people participated in that. And the presentations were fantastic. And you could watch them up to a year later, I think. And but they had breakout rooms for a lot of their presentations, which were really, really well. And I had completely forgotten about that. And then the final thing I just want to mention is that I have to admit that I have not thought about making use of the Speakers Bureau. And I guess I'm really going to look into that, because that is a resource that I really haven't thought about using. And I guess I should, because I'm sure there's lots of things that our people would be very, very interested in. And it would be really, I think it would be really a great idea to have some of those presentations. And that one from the Sheriff's Department sounds especially attractive, especially since I just had a hard drive fail on my NAT server 2 days ago and ordered a new hard drive from Amazon that's supposed to arrive today. Anyway, those are my comments. Any questions?
Thank you, Murray. And if you guys have not had a presentation on what a Raspberry Pi is and what it can do, it's fascinating. I mean, people just, it blows people's minds when they see how little it is. I had one almost when they first started out, and it was amazing what it could do back then. There's no telling how much better it is now. But if you've got a Raspberry Pi person in your group, go for it. Any questions for Murray? Over to Kurt.
Yeah, totally non-technical. Over the past year for both TCPC and my church, I have seen the value of having remote participants. And the idea of going back to an in-house meeting is completely impalatable to me. There are people out there that we can serve, but we can only serve them if we allow them to connect remotely. And there are also people that want very much to meet in person, and I think we all do, okay, no matter how type B we are or whatever. So the idea of going to either all in person or all remote meetings is something that is just unpalatable to me. There are people that we can serve, and we can only do it if we do it remotely. We've got people that are local, some that won't participate remotely, and I don't understand that, but they exist, okay? And all of us want to get together. So we've got to be striving to do hybrid meetings, I think, all the time. We shouldn't be going backwards. There are people that we can meet and serve that can't meet in person.
Central Kentucky president let me know that they have people coming in from Europe and across the United States. Pat Asis, the Potomac area group, has had Zoom meetings, hybrid meetings for years. They also have a lot of really expensive equipment that goes along with the George Mason Ollie group. And they have people from Hawaii. One guy goes to Hawaii every year for vacation. By golly, he doesn't miss a meeting. So hybrid meetings are alive and well and here to stay.
I agree. We have the best ones for me, because I have Scottish ancestors, is the people who have joined our Victoria genealogical group from Scotland, from the area where my grandparents are from.
How cool is that? Over to Kate. Kate, will you please unmute yourself?
Sorry. My question is that you're going to a lot of effort and a lot of expense to have hybrid meetings, and I love the idea, but how are you staying solvent?
When you look at what Huey and Mike Ungerman put together, I doubt that that's over a couple $300. A lot of people donate with Bill James' case, even though they have money. He has a lot of the equipment. They use his equipment. In my case, my group used my laptop. We have an excellent projector that, of course, is sitting in my office not being used. But if you go on Amazon, it's too bad we all missed Prime Day. But Amazon is the place to shop, and if you can get a price there, you can go to Best Buy or Walmart locally if you want to get local and say, hey, can you beat this? And they'll usually, sell it to you locally on, what you can get it from Amazon. So the deal is shop around.
We didn't
the next question that I have for that is that why would anybody locally pay dues if you're having hybrid meetings and they could attend meetings for free?
Oh,
in other words,
gosh.
are you gonna lose your local dues paying members?
Many groups, since they haven't been paying rent, have cut the dues in half. They would get the award-winning newsletter if they had one. There are other perks to belonging to a group, some groups, other than attending meetings. But there is one group in New York, and that is their quandary on, and like I told the guy I talked to, David, I said it's partially my fault because I came up with the shared meeting list. And now a lot of groups have people from across the United States attending their meetings. I was at a Columbus Computer Society meeting and the other night, and actually I gave a presentation. And at the end, two gals from Louisiana were there, and they were talking about it's time for dues renewal. And she said, I'll be sending my membership fee in. She's in Louisiana. She gets enough from their online meetings to want to join the group.
That's great. Thank you very
A
much.
member from TugNet in California has joined a group in Florida. So apparently they feel there's value there. But not if you're paying your membership fees, $50, $60, $70. If you're not paying rent, you don't have to charge that anymore.
Thank you, Judy.
Yeah. And the other thing too is you can control who comes to your meetings and who doesn't.
Yeah. You can say, I'm sorry, but if you want to attend, we're starting this hybrid stuff, or this is our fiscal year. And if you'd like to attend our meetings, think about joining the group.
Our group, or the genealogy group, first of all, they have some things that are only available to members. The other thing is they have a bunch of workshops, paid workshops, which raises money. And they have a much cheaper rate if you are a member than if you, they're open to everybody, but if you're not a member, you have to pay a little bit more. And as I said before, their revenue is the highest they've had in history this year. And so people have seen the value of belonging. I personally am one. Same with the Victoria Computer Club. Our Apple expert, part of his pitch every single time is, hey, the Victoria Computer Club is one of the best bargains around. And it is. It's worthwhile paying for it. And lots of people feel that way.
Groups have forums. They have classes. They are free to members or at a discounted rate. If you're not a member, you pay full freight. Dave Gerber is nodding his head. I was speaking about the Sarasota group. Other groups do exactly the same thing. Some groups back in the day would say, oh my gosh, Bill James calls the SIG study groups. You can attend 3 SIG meetings, and after that, you need to join. So that would work for exactly the way we're doing it now.
Thank you all for your
Or
suggestions.
again, if nobody's paying any rent, you got a lot of money in the bank, you're not buying refreshments, you're not paying rent, then lower the dues to minimal and go with it that way. Over to Gabe Goldberg.
Hi, thanks, Judy. Great session so far. I was going to mention PADAX. I say it PADAX, other people say it PADACES. PADAX actually has 2 different meeting sites. One, as you mentioned, is a very elaborate setup, mostly paid for by Ollie at George Mason University. But we also meet at a bare bones community room in Arlington And when we do hybrid meetings there, it's bring your own stuff. And so we truck in our equipment every time. And I just wanted to comment on expense there. It's probably not been more than the $200 or $300 that were mentioned. So it's really not very expensive. But the point I was going to chime in on there's a different way to do hybrid, which is basically to stream only. And that makes things much more simple. It means that people attending remotely are in watch only. They can't chime in. They're not meeting participants, but they still get most of the benefit of the presentation. And I've been in meetings that some groups have done where the YouTube chat, where the meeting is streamed on a YouTube channel, the YouTube chat is both for conversation among attendees, but it's also monitored by the people running the meeting. And those questions can be relayed to the speakers. So one way to sort of do half hybrid is just to stream it on YouTube or another platform like that. Some groups stream it from their own website, and then people can observe and watch, be exposed to your group, and perhaps be recruited to join either as remote members or in person when in-person meetings start. And since I've got the mic, I'll just make one other comment that if people have iPads, probably tablets in general, but iPads for me specifically, I always just use iPad for Zooming as I'm doing right now. And I have found that to be much simpler, much more reliable, much more convenient because I can pick it up and move it around. And so if you have a tablet and you're not using it to Zoom, you might explore that because you might find it quite pleasant.
Dave Gerber, over to you.
Yeah, one of the things that our group decided to do, because we're not paying rent anyplace, is we actually waived the dues for everybody for 1 year. And we're not running into any financial issues because of that. I don't know what's going to happen if we end up going hybrid, and we may have some additional expenses. Right now, I think we're good in that vein, and we have to get back to charging dues at some point because we do have a value. But we decided to try this strategy for the time being because it's also new and different. That's it.
My group is a small group, and we didn't used to pay rent. We've never paid rent. And we moved to a new senior center, and they wanted money. And we had $1,200 in the bank, and I told them that, we'll just pay rent until, we run out of money. We would, keep getting it in every year to keep us solvent for longer than $1,200 would. But that was our decision because, it was a shock to have to pay rent, but they needed the money. Kurt, your turn.
I just learned this morning that we are going to have a commercial facility, an office facility, a training room available to us in the fall for free. One of our members works for that company, and we'll take advantage of that. But there are other places that you can meet free. And in our area, one of those is libraries, but the only way you can use library facilities for free is if you are a 501c3. We completed that process about 5 years ago, specifically for that purpose. Now it's not cheap, but it's not terribly expensive. I'm guessing, depending upon your state, doing that is probably less than $500. The biggest part of that being the IRS $300 fee to become a 501c3. But your expenses don't have to be high. We're looking at some other spaces that we would rent that could be from $40 to $75 a night. Zooming is not expensive. Two of the three groups that I'm active in, it's members like me that just take and donate our accounts. I have an account so that I can share it with TCPC and with my church and with some other impromptu groups that I'm part of. I've reached I'm not rich, but I can afford that. Okay. And I suspect most of us are like that, and that the equipment expenses are not significant. I probably haven't spent $100 over the last year for things to try out to see if they will work. Okay. And we can easily blow that going out for dinner. If we want to. So your online meetings don't have to be expensive. And if anybody, wants to talk about that more, have them you can call me.
Some groups meet in the Midwest above a gas station that has meeting rooms. Other groups meet in a meeting room above grocery stores that have meeting rooms, and they've met there for years. It's a group in Wisconsin, a group in Pennsylvania, a couple of other groups in the Midwest. In California, it's all well and good, but we have to have $1 million additional insured liability insurance. And you guys all know or should know how horribly expensive liability insurance has become. If you want to meet in a library, you want to meet in a school, you want to meet, they wanted that at the senior center where we meet. And I said, really? And I signed a waiver. All the members agreed, slip and fall, it's on us.
Judy, a quick comment about the library, which is a good idea. One of my regional groups meets at a library, but the problem is the library won't let them book every month like we do on Zoom. And so they have to have somebody ready at a moment's notice whenever the book is open for their room. And a lot of times they'll have somebody jump in ahead of them and take their room. And then they're stuck because, okay, now what do we do? And so you got to make sure you have a group that'll let you book it so it can be regular.
Yeah. We have that problem with libraries, and also library. If you have a confirmed booking for a room in a library, the library can at any time decide they want to use it for their own purpose and kick you out.
Yep.
Well, that has to do with the individual library system. Here in Sarasota County, I facilitate meetings at our local library. Of course, they're not doing it now because of COVID, but they'll probably come back at some point. It's totally free. We could book months in advance.
Cool.
So we have a very, very user-friendly library system as far as room reservations is concerned. Unfortunately, we can't do it now because they haven't opened up the rooms because of COVID. But I've been staying on top of that because I think that would be a good option for us. But every library system is going to be different.
Yep. And in libraries also, I get a lot of feedback from groups. Their internet access is just horrible and it's not reliable. And so, like I say, I encourage hotspot, way to go. And other groups, they volunteer. Somebody teaches a class or two at the library. And as a thank you, they get their preferred meeting time. Okay. Over to Murray.
Okay, well, I'm just going to mention that we have been using the conference room in our local grocery store, and we have a guy who is doing a liaison between all of different people who want to book rooms and everything, and that has been great. However, it was open again for a while during COVID, but it closed down again when we got the third wave. And they now have a new manager, and it's not clear if those rooms will be available. And also probably the bookings that we had already made for the rest of the year will probably go away. And it's not at all clear whether we'll get that back or not. So we may be looking for a different place. The Raspberry Pi group that we have here has got arrangements with local private college that has been letting them use the room there. There seems to be a lot of more technical difficulties with that room, I think, than there have been with our grocery store. But if we have to, we've tried different places like restaurants and so on. With restaurants, we found the background noise was just too difficult and the Wi-Fi really bad. But anyway, we may end up looking for something else. But I really wanted to say that there's a lot of ideas here that have been presented that are very, very interesting. And I'm definitely going to look into using Speakers Bureau. The other thing that I have with our senior center, when it opens, it has some good rooms and good facilities. The problem that we have for Linux and genealogy is that they are limited to, basically you have to be over 55 to make use of facilities. And especially in the Linux group, we have a lot of people who are younger than 55. In fact, some of our best presenters are well under 55, and not being able to meet in the senior center would really hamper our access to those facilities. So that's my final comments, I think, for today.
Many of the groups that meet in a gas station conference room or a grocery store, they always mention, don't forget to buy your coffee and everything at the snack shop.
Yeah, and I always say
they can support them.
And I also say, don't forget to donate to their special charity.
Okay, over to Dave. Dave Gerber, you're on. Oh, he forgot to lower his hand. Okay, do we have any more hybrid meeting questions? Your choice. Do you want to stop now, or do you want to talk about program ideas or share other information or ask pertinent questions to get answers from somebody who might have an answer you haven't thought of? Your choice. No comment?
I'm ready to leave.
Then I think we're ready to go and say goodbye. And I thank you for all of your input. It was invaluable. I hope